So this is it. This is our first episode. We've did a few trials. We did some practice. We've did a little bit of everything to try to get here today to start this show, podcast, memory channel. Who knows what it is? But so I just want to start by telling everybody just kind of the beginnings of our story, of how we met, where we started, and how it kind of evolved to where we are today.
And by the way, I'm Amanda.
I'm Johnny.
Resume.
I am resuming, but she thinks she did that just because when we started this, I said, okay, we need to do introductions when we started so that people that had never heard or seen us before would know who we are. And she was like, no, you sound like a robot. You sound scripted. You sound, all these different things. And I was like, yeah, but, we need to tell the people who you are. So my thing was like, so we'll start and I'll say, my name's Johnny. And she was going to say, my name's Amanda. And, so if you didn't get the name of the show is Shut Up Amanda, because she does stuff like that a lot. And so anyways, for a decade now, that's what I've been dealing with. But our story starts together in 2014. We've both been in recovery since then. We've both been sober since 2014. And February of 2014, I went to rehab. March. I went to rehab in March the 14th, I think. So I went to rehab in Campbellsville, Kentucky. Never been there. I'd never even heard of it. And so I go there. I was in rehab from March, I think, until August. Yeah, till August. Once I was there, I got kicked out of rehab for horseplaying, for pulling a chair out from under somebody. And that was an immediate, termination from the program. So I got kicked out, and they told me you can come back in a week. And so I called my probation officer at the time, and she says, meet me here on Monday. I go on Monday. She handcuffs me. She puts me in jail, leaves me in jail for 2 months. And I'm saying all that because without every single one of these little things that happened, we would have never met, at least in the same capacity that we did. But so I went to jail, got out in October, went back to the same rehab, which was also a point of discussion of whether I would go back to the same one. And so go back to the rehab, start the program over. They start because the program's a 6-month program. I had been there for right at 5 months when I got kicked out. So I had almost was to the end of the program. So when I go back, they do fast track me some to try to get me back to where I was instead of making me redo every single thing over. So I get back to where I was in the program. And then December, I'm going to a meeting. And that's when I meet Amanda.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was there.
Well, I know you was there. I couldn't have met you.
So yeah, he comes in to the meeting, and it was my home group meeting, that Monday night meeting. So it's always the most packed meeting of the week. Like, everybody comes to that meeting. And he, I can't remember who kind of made introductions, but someone introduced us. And so before a meeting and after a meeting, that's the kind of side meeting, like you fellowship. That's what you do. And so, a group of us talked before the meeting, and then, after the meeting, we talked a little more, and I just was like, this guy's really cool. Like, I mean, he just is. Like, I could see being good friends with him. And so, we just kind of progressed from that night on. Like I, offered um to give rides to the meetings. There's pretty big distance between where the recovery center was and where the local meeting place was. And there was only one in town. Like you could go to a church meeting or something like that. But as far as AA spots, this was the only one. And so he did take me up on the offer for rides. And just this friendship developed. Like a whole group of us became literally the closest friends that you could have. Like looking back on it, none of us had a single thing to offer. Like anything except for like the friendship, the fellowship side of it. And it was just one of the greatest experiences of my life. I made friends. I found my husband. Like it was, to say like storybook in like a rehab and recovery situation is not really like how you would write it, but it kind of was. It kind of was for us. Like we, had nothing. We are literally broken people having to restart life. And we're able to find each other and become just the closest of friends.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. That's exactly how it happened. And when we met, I did take her up on rides because it was freezing cold. It was December outside, and so for one, I didn't want to keep walking in the cold, but two, I liked her. So, I don't know if I liked her more then or more now. I'm not sure on that yet, but yeah, like she was, also you got to think, when you're in a rehab, this isn't a co-ed rehab. It was 100 men in the rehab. So you are surrounded by men every day, all day. So when you do see a girl, especially out, and then especially at an AA meeting, you're usually, not interacting that much. Like, I don't know if that makes sense.
Or if you're the girl at the AA meeting with 40 guys, you're bombarded. Like, you are.
Right.
But with him, it was like a completely different interaction. Like, it was not, that. It was, just the whole getting to know each other. Like, we would have the most random conversations. Getting to know somebody usually takes so much time and energy, but when you're in that kind of like box, like it's able to happen really fast. And so quickly he became my absolute best friend. And then there was this like whole shift because I knew that this is my home. This is where I was born and raised. I have situations that prevent me from being able to leave, and he's going to go home at some point. And so it was, the wanting to spend all this time because, he's my best friend, but also knowing he's got to go home. Like he has a whole life there that he has to go home to. So what happens then? Like we text every day or, like talk every now and then, like what happens then? So, it went on like that for months.
Yeah. So, yeah, when we met in December, we would just hang out all the time. After you get out, you can leave the rehab every day at 4:00. So at 4:00, I would immediately be out the door. We would just drive around. listen to music, go to libraries, go to meetings, and just hang out, just literally do nothing. Go to Walmart, and then we started. We would go to her mom's house and just hang out, watch TV there because at the rehab you're not just watching TV all the time. So that was like a something that you couldn't just do there. And then after a couple months, we met in December, then it was maybe like February, I get put on property restrictions for being on a phone outside of Subway.
Yep.
So back then at the rehab, nowadays the people there can have phones. Like, I don't know if they can have them on property. I think they might be able to.
I'm not sure.
But for a while they could have them. They kept them outside, locked up in a box, and then when they were leaving every day, they could have their phones. When I was there, you couldn't have a phone. You couldn't even be on a cell phone at any point while you were in the program. If you were seen on a cell phone, you were likely getting kicked out. Well,
so the kind of program that he was in was like, what do they call it? Like
a peer-driven social model.
Okay, so you're basically in there with 100 different guys, and it's their responsibility to make sure you're doing what's right. So they are essentially ratting you out for stuff. And the whole idea behind it is that, you start to see those behaviors and you're able to correct them. And so in a lot of cases, those kinds of corrections are life-saving and truly help people, be able to change those underlying behaviors that cause them to keep going out and using. It can also at times, though, get a little on the petty side of things, and, just be a kind of gotcha moment. So,
yeah. So I'd forgot. So when we met, I told the director of the program and just other people, I wasn't even thinking, I didn't even really know any better to or not to. I just was trying to just be upfront, like, hey, just so you all know, like, and somebody might have said something like in passing, and it made me think of like, why would they say that? And so I tell the director, like, hey, I met this girl, she's super cool. She's, we became friends, and everybody was like, no, you all can't be hanging out. That's not good. You're going to get high again. All these things. And I was just like, what? Like, why would they say this about her? Like, that was what I kept thinking. Like, why would they think this about Eve? Like, what is going on? And so obviously I didn't listen to them. I wasn't, I didn't tell them asking for their permission. I told them to, kind of just figure out why, what was going on, more or less. And so when I did that, but then we would hang out, and after, like I said, about December to February, and then in February, we're at Subway. I got a phone call from my mom, Amanda did, and I just remember, because normally I wouldn't be on the phones, and I don't know if it was something to do, like, my mom had my kids at the time, and so I don't remember if it was something I felt like it was important or something to do with them or what it may have been, but I felt like it was important enough to take the phone call at Subway and walk out onto the sidewalk.
Which is not far from the rehab. Like, it's kind of just right down the road. So everybody in the program is at that shopping center. Everybody that works in the program is coming through that shopping center.
Right. It's literally the rehab, a Walmart, and the shopping center. It's right there. Like, it's a 5-minute walk. So I don't think about it. I go back, and they put me on property restriction for 2 months till the end of my program there. So because I had been fast tracked in the program when I came back, I was pretty much already done with the actual program part of it. But when you go there through a probation officer, you're on a 180-day contract. So it don't matter how fast you complete it, you still have to stay the 180 days. So I did that. They put me on property restriction. My job was I was the driver. So they have a big van, and your job is to drive people to doctor's appointments, to the newcomers to the meeting on Monday. The new people in the program, you would drive them to the meeting on Mondays. And essentially anywhere a client needed to go, you would be the one to drive them. And so I would drive, and then on Mondays I would get to go to the meeting, and I would get to see her at the meetings on Monday, and then I would still talk to her, and then my friends that were in there, they would still, and she would give them rides and stuff and stuff like that. And so we were still able to communicate, even though I was on property restriction. I literally couldn't leave the building except to drive somebody to a doctor's appointment or to
like the doctor or a meeting or
right,
a class or
that was literally it. And is that when I was doing the parenting classes, was I on property restriction then?
Yeah. And then you would if you're the driver, you would also have like a little flip phone, cell phone.
Right.
And I would always get like random like 3 a.m. phone calls where you would have to take somebody to the hospital or something.
Yeah. Yeah, because the phone, you carry the little flip phone with you, and, definitely would have got me kicked out again. I don't know what I was thinking of, like, oh, let me use this phone that I don't know. Can they track it? Does it have a phone plan? Are they checking the call log? Which I would delete the calls on the phone, but if they have an actual call log through the plan, like all they'd have to do is look at it, and see who used it at 3:00, because you have to sign out. Anytime you leave the property, you have to sign out for any reason. So they could have caught me easy on that one, but they didn't, because she was working, I think, third shift. Was you working third shift then?
Towards the end.
Okay, yeah. But so that happened. I was on property restriction. I mean, I couldn't go anywhere. It was horrible to just, and for part of that, I completed the program.
Mm-hmm.
So literally,
you just sat there. Literally
did nothing for months. Just would lay in bed all day. Did I have a TV even?
I think so. And you would go down and hang out in SOS and stuff like that.
Yeah, because I was bored out of my mind. I mean, they have some stuff to do there. I mean, they have, a ping pong table and basketball outside. And I mean, they have some stuff to do, but when you're just stuck in one room all day, it was boring. Like, and then even though that I'd completed the program, you still have to be up for their counts. They do a count in the morning at like 7 a.m. and then they do one at 4:00, don't they?
Yeah, before you leave.
Before you leave, they do a count. And I would have to show up to them every day. So even though I had nothing to do, I would have to wake up at 7 a.m. and go downstairs, be there for the count, and then go back and go to sleep. Because a lot of the other jobs, like you may work in the kitchen or laundry or maintenance, those jobs like kind of work by shifts. Like kitchen shift, you're working, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, if you're on the kitchen team. If you're maintenance, you're doing maintenance stuff. You're mowing the yard, you're doing stuff like that. But where I was the driver, I just kind of was on call. So I didn't have like a designated time that I worked, but it was definitely the best job there.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Not even close.
You wouldn't have survived in the kitchen.
I worked in the kitchen before too.
Mm.
Yes, I did.
I have no doubt that you did a rotation, but I'm sure that they got rid of you really quick. I'm sure they were like, okay, he did his one time and let's move him on.
Because you vote for, I think you vote or something for what people's jobs are. You vote for the supervisors and then you rotate through the different ones. You'll be on laundry. Maintenance is kind of a more full-time crew, but then laundry, clothes closet, kitchen, and you vote for the supervisors each week. You would vote in community and be like, that's, we're voting for him for kitchen supervisor, or voting for him for laundry supervisor.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have other people under you then that kind of helps. And you still have to do stuff, but yeah, it was interesting, to go through all of that. And, but for her to keep me, like, while I was on property restriction, and she, would write me letters and, stayed in contact with me. And then when I was off property restriction, when you complete the program, you have an option that you can you can leave and go home. You can go to phase 2 or peer mentor's office. The peer mentor's office is kind of like what it says, peer mentors. So they are people that graduated the program and they stay to work there.
Kind of like the
caseworkers. Yeah, they're kind of become your caseworker once they complete the program. And so once I completed, I knew I wasn't going into the peer mentor office, but I went into phase 2, which is where you get, you have a room and you have more privileges. You can stay out later. You can stay gone on weekends.
You have to get a job within a certain amount of time.
Yeah, you have to have a job, like a real job outside of there. And then you have to pay rent,
right,
depending on kind of, I don't know if it's how much you make they depended, or if it's just like a flat rate. I don't remember. I didn't have to pay rent like forever
though. I think they wait a certain amount of time.
They do. I didn't have to pay forever, but finally, so I started that program in March of 14 and went back in October. So I graduated the program. My second time, my 180 days was up in April. That's when I went into phase 2. So May, June, July, August. So that was 12 plus right at another 5 months. I was there almost 17 months total. And then, come August, I ended up moving back home to Richmond. And, I didn't think like, oh.
So in the meantime, he knows that he's about to move. I know he's about to move. Neither one of us are really talking about it, and he kind of distances himself.
Yeah,
you did.
Yeah, because I didn't want to hurt your feelings.
Completely distanced, and I was so mad at you.
Yeah,
but I mean, like, and when I say I'm so mad at him, like, he would still answer the phone if I would call. Like, he would still text back, but it was like a difference. Like, he wasn't coming and trying to hang out or anything like that. Like, he was very distant.
Well, yeah, I just knew, like, I was going home, and, like, that's a hard thing to do, is like leave somebody that you're like, this is my best friend, and I'm, having to just leave. So I didn't want to do that. And
also by this time, I had been up here with him a lot. And so I had gotten to know, like, his friends up here, like his mom and, his kids and his grandma and, all of that stuff. And so, I know that he's going back to, good. Like, I know that, this is the right move for him. Like, he's got to go back. But I just was still so mad that you're leaving.
Yeah. No, I mean, I just, at the time, I mean, like you said, I just didn't know what to do. I knew that I had to go back home. I had 2 sons there that, I had full custody of before I went to rehab, and that I had to get them back. My granny was older. My mom was not well. And so I was just like, I've got to get, I've got to do this. And so I came back, through the help of some friends. I was working at a car lot, and through to help with some friends, I was able to get a little bitty apartment that I could afford. And we got that. And not long after, I asked her, like, hey, what would you think about coming to Richmond to live? And then, she had other obligations and responsibilities and hoops to jump through before she, could even think about doing that. But, she was like, yeah, because she had come to visit me like after I moved back a couple times. But it's a 2-hour drive, and so
I was in drug court at the time, which is not an easy program. Like, you are, oh my gosh, you have so many like things to complete. You are subject to, having to go in literally at any given time and all of these requirements. So moving was not really anything that I thought would be an option. I wasn't brand new in the program, but I wasn't far enough in that I thought that this was anything that could even be discussed. I mean, I was in there, I was probably phase 2 at the time.
he's probably halfway done,
maybe
right?
6 months. And so, you really don't think that you have options. At least I didn't, but
So yeah, so it's an 18-month program, but so many people, like, you never see people in that program that don't have sanctions or don't get in trouble and have to go do a weekend in jail, or they don't do something to mess up to, get in trouble. And even after she moved, like, she would have to go because when she moved, they kept her drug court in Campbellsville, but she would do her drug testing in Richmond. And so she would do that. So still, like, every week we would have to drive to Marion County, which is right outside of Campbellsville, for her to do her classes, meet with her worker and stuff like that. So it was still a lot. And,
and every morning I'd have to wake up and call.
Was that even on the weekends?
Every day,
Yeah.
even on the holidays. I'd wake up and call. They would say, phase 1 and 3 have to report today, or, whatever. And so that was every day, every single day for 18 months. But at some point, I remember you came home for my 1 year to that meeting. And it was just like something in the world clicked. And I was just like, it can't hurt to ask. Like, it can't hurt to ask. So I finally, at that point, got up the nerve to ask. And they were like, we think it's a good idea that you're not in Campbellsville anymore. And so they let me move. And, I still had all the requirements. I still had to do all of the, calling and checking in, classes, have a job, all of it. And, I kept chugging right through. So like the first, I don't know, like 10 months that I lived up there, almost a year, it was a lot. We had a lot going on, like, a lot.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
Not only did we survive it and like have a lot of fun doing it and, figuring things out and how to manage, because it seemed like every week we were having some situation with vehicles or, apartment, kids, all of real life things that were just hitting us so fast and furious. Like, we still kept having fun and just getting through it. And then I graduated drug court and, all of these like positive things are starting to happen. And, we just keep going and, life just kept getting better. And like, all of it wasn't perfect and good, but we were sober and we were together and we just kept figuring out a way to make it work. Like, looking back on those early times, it's a pretty big deal that we were able to just keep making it work.
Yeah. No, there's so many times we were so broke and had not just, like Amanda had a car, I wrecked it. So then her mom got us this old truck that, got us around from point A to point B. But then there was a time where I was working in Lexington. She was working in Richmond. We had one vehicle. And so she would get a cab. Hold on. But she would get a cab and to and forth to Outback Steakhouse every day. That was just, that's what she did, or she would get a ride, or just, however she, needed to do it, she would do it to, make it work every day. And, yeah, it was a lot of tough times, like, but we learned how to manage money. We learned how to work together, as like a team, not actually at work, but we learned so many things. And then, we started working together, serving, and we've been doing that ever since. I think we started serving together in like 2016 or 17.
Probably 17.
Yeah. And so, we've been serving together for, I don't know, I think it was 16 when we started. I don't think because you moved up there in 15 and got a job immediately at Outback.
Mm-hmm. It may have been.
I don't think you worked at Outback for, over 12 months. But yeah, that's, that's the story of our beginning, how we kind of started. And, yeah. Anything else you want to say before we finish this one?
I don't think so.
That's it. All right. Well, thanks for coming to finally do this with me. And, we're going to do some more videos, anything that anybody wants to see. If there's something y'all want to hear us talk about or something you want to know about us, just, put them in the comments or say whatever. And, we'll make some more videos, this coming week and, see what we can do.